Snow fell softly over the quiet neighborhood of Vancouver, covering the rooftops and driveways in white silence. Inside a small, dimly lit house, three little black girls, triplets no older than 7, stood trembling beside a dirty kitchen floor. Their identical braids hung down their faces, their small hands clasped tightly together. They wore torn sweaters that barely kept them warm. The smell of burnt food filled the air, and behind them stood their stepmother, a tall, cold-faced white woman with piercing blue eyes and red lipstick that matched the bitterness in her voice. "Clean it," she said coldly, pointing to the spilled soup and shattered bowls scattered across the tiles. The girls hesitated, glancing at each other in fear. "Clean it with your tongues," the woman hissed. Her voice carried no pity. One of the triplets began to cry quietly, but a sharp slap silenced her. Their mother, the one they had once called Mommy, had died months ago, and this new woman had turned their world into a nightmare. The oldest triplet knelt down first, her lips trembling as she looked at the floor. Her sisters followed, their tears mixing with the soup. The stepmother crossed her arms, watching with cruel satisfaction. Outside the window, a black limousine slowed to a stop in front of the house. A man inside, a wealthy black businessman in his late 30s with kind eyes and a tailored coat, was on a business call when he noticed the scene through the frosted glass. His heart clenched as he saw 3 small girls kneeling on the floor while a woman towered over them. He rolled down his window for a better look, disbelief hardening into anger. Something deep within him stirred, a protective instinct that wouldn't let him drive away. The next morning, the triplets huddled together on their small bed, sharing a single torn blanket. Their bodies were sore and their eyes red from crying. The room was cold, barely lit by the weak morning sun sneaking through the cracked window. Their stepmother's voice echoed from downstairs, talking loudly on the phone, her laughter sharp and cruel. The girls didn't understand most of what she said, but they knew it meant trouble whenever she laughed like that. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. It was firm but calm. The stepmother paused mid-sentence and frowned. "Who could that be?" she muttered, walking toward the door. When she opened it, she froze. Standing there was the same man from the black limousine, a tall black man dressed in a dark wool coat, his eyes deep with quiet authority. He introduced himself as Mr. Donovan Blake, a real estate investor who had recently moved into the neighborhood. "I couldn't help noticing something unusual yesterday," he said evenly. "There were children in distress in your home. Are they safe?" The stepmother forced a laugh, her tone turning sugary. "Oh, those girls, they're just a handful. You know how kids are," she said, brushing off his concern. But Donovan's sharp eyes caught the faint bruises on her wrist, marks from the way she'd probably grabbed the children earlier. He didn't believe her for a second. "May I see them?" he asked. She hesitated, trying to block the doorway, but at that moment, the faint sound of a child coughing echoed from upstairs. Donovan's expression hardened. Without waiting for her answer, he stepped inside. The woman protested, but his presence was commanding, impossible to ignore. As he climbed the stairs, the girls froze in fear, unsure who this man was. But for the first time in months, they felt something unfamiliar rising in their hearts. Hope. The sound of firm footsteps echoed up the narrow staircase. The triplets sat frozen on the bed, clutching each other as the door slowly creaked open. Standing there was a tall, broad-shouldered black man with calm, kind eyes. He looked around the tiny, broken room. Peeling wallpaper, cold air leaking through cracks, and 3 frightened girls who looked like shadows of themselves. His heart sank. "Hey there," Donovan said softly, kneeling to meet their eyes. "My name is Mr. Blake. Are you 3 okay?" The oldest girl hesitated before whispering, "She makes us clean the floor with our tongues." Her voice cracked. The words hit Donovan like a punch to the chest. He glanced around again, at the empty plates, the bruises on their arms, the fear in their eyes. He took a deep breath, trying to steady his emotions, but his jaw tightened. Downstairs, the stepmother shouted, "Get out of my house!" Her voice was shrill, desperate. Donovan ignored her and stood, his expression now calm but dangerously controlled. "No, ma'am," he said as he turned to face her on the stairs. "You've lost the right to call this a home." He pulled out his phone and called the authorities. "Yes," he said firmly. "Child welfare, please. I'm reporting a case of abuse. 3 minors, severe neglect." The woman's face twisted in fury. "You can't take them! They're mine!" she yelled, but her words fell flat as the distant sound of sirens filled the street. Donovan turned back to the girls, kneeling again. "You're safe now, I promise," he whispered. One of them reached out, touching his hand as if testing if he was real. The other 2 slowly smiled through their tears. For the first time, someone had seen them, not as a burden, but as children who mattered. Outside, the snow kept falling, but inside that broken home, something began to melt. Within minutes, the flashing lights of a police car painted the white snow in streaks of red and blue. The stepmother's confidence crumbled as officers stepped into the house. She tried to defend herself, saying it was discipline, but her trembling voice betrayed her. Donovan stood nearby, arms folded, his gaze steady and unyielding. The triplets stood close to him, their small hands gripping his coat like it was their only protection in the world. One officer, a kind-looking woman, knelt before the girls. "It's okay now, sweethearts," she said gently. "You're safe." The triplets didn't move until Donovan gave a reassuring nod. Then, one by one, they stepped forward. Their clothes were thin, their eyes hollow, but when they looked up at him, something in their hearts told them they could finally trust again. As the police led the stepmother away, she shouted, "You'll regret this, Donovan Blake!" But her words were drowned out by the closing car door. The man exhaled deeply, his breath fogging in the cold air. He turned back to the girls, who now stood shivering beside the patrol car. "Do you have anywhere to go?" he asked softly. They shook their heads in silence. He paused for a moment, then crouched down to their level. "Then you're coming with me, for now," he said. "I'll make sure you're taken care of." The youngest of the triplets, with big, tearful eyes, asked, "Will you be our new daddy?" Donovan smiled faintly, touched by her innocence. "Let's get you warm first," he replied. "Then we'll talk about the rest." He opened the back door of his sleek black car and helped them in. As he drove away, the girls watched the only house they'd ever known fade into the distance. In its place, they felt the first glimmer of something new, peace. A week later, the triplets sat together on a large couch in a cozy living room filled with warmth and laughter. The house smelled of pancakes and maple syrup. Outside, the Canadian winter still painted the world white, but inside, everything felt alive again. Donovan's modern home was nothing like the place they had come from. It was bright, safe, and full of gentle music playing from the kitchen. The 3 girls, now wearing clean pajamas and matching pink socks, laughed softly as Donovan helped them pour syrup on their breakfast. He wasn't used to having children around, but the joy in their voices filled the silence that had long haunted his mansion. For the first time in years, he felt like life had meaning again. Later that day, a social worker came by to check on the girls. She smiled, noting how comfortable they were. "Mr. Blake," she said, "you've done more than just rescue them. You've given them family." Donovan looked at the triplets, who were now drawing pictures by the fireplace. "They've given me family too," he replied quietly. He knelt beside them, watching as one of them proudly showed him a crayon drawing of the 4 of them holding hands under a big sun. Above it, in shaky handwriting, were the words, "Our new home." His throat tightened. He gently pulled them into a hug. "No one will ever hurt you again," he promised. The girls smiled, their eyes shining with the kind of peace that only love could bring. The camera of life had captured something beautiful, how kindness can turn strangers into family, and how one act of courage can rewrite a destiny. If this story touched your heart, share it. You might inspire someone to stand up for the voiceless today.